We're gonna hold out. If we end up eating the tag, so be it, but
I always like a good story, and I don't know if I've been part of one as crazy as this, so. Nothing's easy in this country. That was a hike and a half, boy. This week's show is all about whitetails. Now this week's story actually starts a couple of years ago, when after another long tour of duty guiding in the mountains of Western Canada, I was more than a little anxious to get home and see my family. And of course, within a couple of days I soon headed out with two of my favorite scouting partners, my son Brock and my old pup Jasper, to get a little fresh air and to see what was around for later that fall. And within a week of returning home from the mountains, it was time to head off to work again, this time trying to outsmart a few whitetails. And after another busy November, I finally allowed myself to start daydreaming again about the last week of the season when I'd finally get a chance to hunt for myself. Eventually, it was time to check my own cameras, and I was more than a little excited when I saw pictures of an old buck that one of my trail cameras actually caught video of the year before after the season. And apparently, this year, he grew a little. Long story short, I could not wait to go after him. It wasn't until the third last day of the season, when the wind direction finally cooperated, and with my anticipation about to burst, I finally made it into my stand in hopes of seeing the drop tine buck.
well, it looks like another morning down. We got a few days left, but that's a pretty good 5x4 there this morning. There's a doe coming in there. We're gonna hold out, keep holding out. We got I think 2-3 days left, and if we end up eating the tag, so be it. But the weather looks like it's gonna be pretty good, so get back out of here and give her a try tonight. See if we can't get lucky.
The Canadian Guide Life with Brad Fry is brought to you by Monarch Images, trail cameras that capture the action. Fort Muzzle Shell Outfitters, Montana's finest big game hunts. Buddy Ramp, the safe way to get loaded. Big Buck Magazine, Canada's #1 deer hunting publication. And by Fry's Canadian Outback Outfitters.
Before the break, I finally had a chance to hunt the drop tine buck I had video and pictures of the past few seasons, and although he was a no-show the first day out, I did manage to see a nice 5x4 that definitely tempted the old trigger finger. So, with the wind out of the right direction again, and with a drastic drop in temperature overnight, I slipped into my stand for morning number 2. With 2 decent bucks leading the way back from the fields, the big 5x4 was bringing up the rear. But, with poor camera light and the drop tine buck still out there somewhere, I decided to roll the dice with one more day of the season left to go.
Okay, it's December 7th, the last day of the whitetail season here in Saskatchewan. Coming down to the nitty-gritty, I've got about 4 deer on trail camera that I would take. One of them's a big 5x4. Now I've seen him twice this week, all right at first light, not good camera light. I didn't have a picture of him then, and I didn't really know if how good he was, but anyways, this morning, being the last day, he was definitely on the hit list and the most consistent, so I was banking on seeing him this morning. But saw quite a few deer, and best buck maybe 140. Anyway, as it's getting lighter, I see a raven down in the meadow, and he's kind of pecking at something. I didn't think nothing of it. As it's getting lighter and lighter, I look, I go, geez, that stick looks like an antler. So I put the binos up and I look, and sure enough, it's an antler. And it looks like it's the right side, the 4-point side off the 5x4. So if it is, that means he's not in very good shape, because if they drop this early, that means that they're run down pretty good. So hopefully he can regain some energy here in the next few weeks before real winter comes in and takes him out. So anyway, there's no deer coming through right now. I think the morning rush is over, so I'm gonna walk out there and grab my half a buck. Maybe the other side's laying out there somewhere too, but anyways, I guess he's off the hit list for tonight. He's a beauty. I can't believe I let him walk. Real heavy, and has a few character points that I didn't see too. So a dark, heavy Saskatchewan buck, but we got half of him. Probably find the other half to him here later on after the season's over tonight. So anyways, we'll back out of here, grab some lunch, and get back at it.
Now, if the story wasn't quite unique enough already, it was about to get a whole lot more confusing as I was back at my truck having lunch and checking memory cards, hoping to see another picture like this. Instead, I saw pictures like these, which led me to believe the 5x4 had dropped both sides overnight. As it turned out, though, it wasn't the 5x4 at all, and was most likely the drop tine buck I was still hoping to see. as I headed back to my blind for the last few hours of the season. And now, to add the final painful little twist to this already complicated story. Now, being a novice at this whole filming game, when my video camera began to show me this message, I simply ignored it as the deer were already beginning to move. And looking at the LCD screen, it appeared to be recording just fine. However, the next day I was horrified to find out it wasn't actually recording anything at all. And as you might have guessed it, that evening one of the bucks stepped out right at last light. And although my video camera didn't capture anything at all, my trail camera did. And after finally taking the time to clean my camera after the kill, I changed tapes and carried on unaware of any problems.
Alright, here's what I guess we'll be calling the Shedhorn buck. Here's the match, and I was already starting to plan on coming back tomorrow to look for this side, and then out he walked right last light, still carrying it, and I didn't even hesitate. As soon as I saw him, I knew I was going to take him. And I mean, if you would ask me any other time would I ever think about shooting a buck that had already dropped an antler, I probably would have thought you're crazy, but I didn't even hesitate. As soon as I saw him, I was like, this can't be happening, and if I can get a shot at him, I'm going to take it. And I always like a good story, and I don't know if I've been part of one as crazy as this, so.
Before the break, we covered the interesting turn of events that happened to me last year when I had started out after a drop tine buck and ended up with a one-antlered buck. So, this year's question was obvious. What had happened to the drop tine buck? Well, after one of the longest and hardest winters in recent memory, and yet another tour of duty in the mountains, I returned home to another busy fall of guiding before finally getting a chance to check a few of my own stands. And after wondering what the drop tine buck would look like, if in fact he survived the winter at all, my questions were eventually answered with a week of the season remaining. And even though his drop tine was now missing, he was still going to get my full attention as soon as I sighted in my muzzleloader and got the right wind. Now this was a buck I also had a little history with. It had actually been 4 years since the last time I saw him though, and a few years after this video was shot, he grew into a pretty nice 5x5. But after taking a tine in the eye later that fall, he soon went downhill and has been a heavy old 4x4 ever since. Regardless though, I was seriously thinking about taking the old guy, but with a full week left to hunt, and with a special promise I made to an important hunting partner of mine, I held off to keep my tags for when my 6-year-old daughter Brooklyn would be able to join me a few days later.
It'd be real hot.
Yeah, you're right.
Is it hot?
Yeah.
Too hot?
Yeah.
Well, we better wait a little while let it cool off, eh?
Yeah. I'll leave it open so I can get some air.
That's a good idea. What do you think, we're going to see any deer tonight or what?
I have no idea.
I don't know, we might
Well,
not.
at least I see something.
What do you see?
Well, at least I see a bird.
That might be all we see today. It's pretty ugly, but if this storm blows out just before dark, we might be sitting pretty, so.
Yeah, maybe we'll stay here until dark time.
I think so.
We'll stay here until deer probably come here.
That would be good. Maybe a big old buck, eh?
Yeah.
Well, we'll just sit and see what happens.
Yep. Even though I never saw a deer, I was still happy because I got to go hunting with my dad and I got to miss school.
Drop tine on this side.
It's time now for another blast from the past. Here's Brad with today's vintage video.
This week's video is about a buck I had nicknamed Ribcage, and this footage you're watching now was taken the night I should have taken him. But for now, let's just say I messed up big time, and if you want the full-length written version of that, I invite you to check it out on our website. For now though, let's fast forward to the short version. After a week of warm, blustery weather, I made my way back to the drop tine buck stand, and after the local coyote population graced me with their presence, I was pleasantly surprised a few minutes later when it appeared that tonight just might be the night.
drilled him. That was exciting. He finally showed up.
Not much of a tractor job here. Probably hit him high, but I don't really remember aiming. But there he is. I finally tracked him down. Been after this guy for 4 years, I guess. Got pictures of him on the Monarch cameras for 3 years for sure, and I think it's 4, but he's an old timer that's gone downhill. But I tell you what, it's not all about the antlers. Anytime you take a fully mature whitetail like this, it's something special, and I couldn't be happier. But I'm gonna get some tags on him here. It's getting dark, and load him up and get him home and show the kids. Couldn't be happier.
Next week on the Canadian Guide Life.
Next week, we're back to episode 1 and back to the Yukon with longtime friend and client John Hilbert as he fulfills a lifelong dream, hunting Dall sheep and mountain caribou.